Homelessness in America. In 2019, New York City spent $3 billion, a record-breaking amount, just to support its homeless population. Other cities and states have been spending a lot to ensure that every resident of their cities has a place to lay his head. In fact, that year, a state set a goal of allocating some $4.8 billion to the same issue of homelessness over the next 2 years. This is just an example showing that America is seriously deficient in the provision of shelter. How serious is this situation? How are regions faring? And what efforts are being made to address the situation? This is one of several videos we're devoting to the discussion of homelessness in America. Please enjoy. How serious is the challenge? Homelessness in America is a pressing challenge, a crisis so difficult to document. Thus, the situation is more complicated by a lack of accurate data, and the pandemic that recently ravaged the economy disproportionately impacted the most vulnerable and also weakened the government's ability to accurately account for those left without shelter. And the statistical analysis is scary when data eventually becomes available, as we shall soon see. Rising to this challenge of limited data, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, not long ago completed its first all-inclusive Annual Homelessness Assessment Report, AHAR. The report indicates that almost 600,000 Americans are unhoused on any night. That's a slight increase over the period before 2020. But then, we only need the figures to comprehend the severity of homelessness. We see the homeless now and then in almost every state. We only blame the cause, especially the reckless lifestyle of the homeless, some of whom are drug addicts. Yet we have on hand a more serious problem. Disturbing stat about homelessness in the US. The HUD's annual report mentioned earlier, that is AHAR, examines the overall scope of the issue. It explores, for example, geographical and demographical distribution to identify groups most at risk. We can now share with you the key findings about homelessness as of 2022. As many as 582,462 individuals are experiencing some sort of homelessness in America, an increase of just about 2,000 since the last census in 2020. The ideal situation is to have zero figures, though. About 30% of these people are experiencing chronic patterns of homelessness. The chronically homeless are people without homes for more than 12 months, or people who have been homeless for extended periods over the past 3 years. Most states experience a spike in their homeless populations since 2019. The figures show that in 4, namely Delaware, Vermont, Louisiana and Maine, the tally more than doubled. Also, 60% of those experiencing some sort of homelessness are male. But unsheltered homelessness rose by 5% among females also. More than 25% of homelessness are family people with their children. Military veterans have occupied a greater fraction of the list of homeless persons. However, one positive note about this latest report is that a lot of it is being made towards reducing homelessness among military veterans, such that it has reduced by 11% over the past 2 years, while it has halved since 2010. We speak of some sort of homelessness because it can be relative. To illustrate, 60% of those experiencing homelessness have found refuge in sheltered locations such as emergency shelters, safe havens and transitional housing programs. The remaining 40% are spending their nights unsheltered. They're usually seen on streets, in abandoned buildings, under bridges, or in other places not designated or suitable for human habitation. Not a recent development. As you likely have seen in our analysis up to this point, homelessness didn't start today. Yet we have good news here. Though there is a slight increase in the number of homeless people in America before the outbreak of the pandemic and gradual increases since 2016, those experiencing homelessness are fewer than a decade ago. Listen as we explain this. In 2012, 621,553 Americans were homeless in their country. In 2013, their number reduced to 590,364. It further reduced to 576,450 in 2014. It further steeped in 2015 to 564,708. The trend continued till 2016, when Americans recorded the lowest figure of 549,928 as homeless. But the curve changed in 2017. It started moving upward again, with the country recording 550,996 homeless people that year. And in 2018, the figure went further up to 552,830. They were 567,715 in 2019 and 580,466 in 2020. The pandemic didn't allow the count to hold in 2021, and everyone seemed to have somewhere to hide, even if it wasn't home. The upward movement continued in 2022, when there were 582,462 homeless individuals in the US. While the situation appears to be improving, the success made up till 2016 seems unsustainable. So the questions we should be asking are, why and how did the nation get into this mess? And why has the monster of homelessness refused to go? Well, we have found that factors such as local financial hardship, climate conditions, housing markets, and available social resources are among those responsible. We're deeply interested in those questions, and we have decided to produce some videos to look at them holistically. Thus, no one should get carried away by the euphoric success and conclude the challenge is being controlled. Homelessness by regions. One fact about homelessness in America is that it touches communities of all sizes, and it's across every region. However, some regions are harder pressed than others. Generally, the western US exhibits the highest per capita rates of homelessness. Even in that region, numbers varied significantly from one state to another. The factors earlier mentioned aid the concentration of the unhoused in those regions. Though it's common to narrow the view of those experiencing some sort of homelessness to unsheltered individuals on the streets of certain cities, the issue permeates communities of all types. Yes, most unhoused Americans are found in urban areas, but suburban and rural settings aren't completely okay. The hardest hit cities. Among major cities, Los Angeles is on record as having the highest number of homeless people, which is 54,469. It's followed by New York City, which has 32,308 residents without a place to sleep at night. Collectively, the two states account for nearly one-fifth of the unhoused populations in the country. No other city has a figure close. None has more than 10,000 homeless people. Seattle and San Jose are among the top 4, while Oakland and San Francisco tie to make the list of top 5 cities with the highest homelessness figure in the US. Based on that report, major cities in the country have an increase totaling 5,694 in the number of unhoused individuals over the past 2 years. They also are on record as having the highest percentage of unsheltered homeless at 55%. As observed that rural settings aren't free from the scourge, the recent figures reveal that the most notable increase in unhoused populations is experienced there. The numbers there have increased by 6% since 2020. The hardest hit cities and states. As you muse on the cities mentioned as the hardest hit, you won't find it so hard to guess the hardest hit states as well. California has the highest number of unhoused individuals, given as 171,521. No need for a serious calculation if 3 cities in the state could make the list of the top 5 with the highest homelessness figure in the country. This is followed by New York with 71,178 homeless, and next by Florida with 25,959. Washington and Texas complete the list of the top 5 states with 25,211 and 24,432 respectively as their figure for homeless people. We can also consider the per capita homelessness per state to determine the state's hardest hit. Again, California is the most afflicted with 43.7 per capita. This is followed by Vermont, which has 43.1 per capita, and then by Oregon with 42.3 and Hawaii with 42.4. New York is in the 5th position with 37.4 homelessness per capita, thereby joining California as one of the states with both the highest number of homeless and the highest per capita. Some states have witnessed the most significant percentage increases in homelessness since 2019. Each of the top 4 of them, namely Delaware, Vermont, Louisiana and Maine, more than double its rate. They record 157, 155, 151 and 109% increase respectively, while the 5th on the list, Rhode Island, records a 49% increase. Altogether, 28 states record homelessness increases in the latest AHAR. We have other videos dedicated to the discussion of homelessness in the United States by state. Kindly watch this and others that look at different aspects of America's homelessness. Please search for them, as we would love to end this one here. How do you feel about the homeless in the US? Do you see people without homes where you live? Please let us have your comments on this for education purposes. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.